Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the moves by some in the fishing industry to take the government to court over their misleading assertions that trade in the old Category B live bivalve molluscs would be able to continue once the UK left the EU. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news in politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So in terms of the legal grievance first, then my thoughts on how robust it seems, because I have two minds about this. Without, of course, having legal expertise in the matter, I certainly can't pronounce on that. So this has blown up because the government personally assured the fishing industry that the trade in the aforementioned molluscs, such as mussels, oysters and so on, could continue after Brexit. And it would have been an obvious question for those working in the shellfish industry to ask, because the EU has a rule that means third countries, which is what we are now, may only export live bivalve molluscs from Category A water to the EU. This is essentially a health issue. Category B water isn't terribly sanitary, and molluscs would not be fit for human consumption without treatment. Now, they can be treated, there are different ways they can be treated, and then exported to the EU with the appropriate certification paperwork and so on. But we don't really have much in the way of purification facilities in Britain. The procedure in the past has been to export the molluscs to facilities that exist elsewhere in the EU. But that's not an option now. But DEFRA, which is the Department for the Environment, Farming and Rural Affairs, said that the EU had given assurances that the trade could continue. George Eustace, who is the department's cabinet minister, was clear about this with those involved with the trade. And I remember well in January, I talked about this, the fact that, you know, when it became clear that the trade was banned, Eustace said that it was going to be temporary and that new health certificates were going to be coming out in the spring. And I said at the time, well, that's going to be a bit late. We're in the season at the moment. You know, you're losing them a lot of money here. But in theory, you could have said, well, the certificates would come online. It's not completely destroying the industry, and government compensation maybe for those few months. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't particularly helpful missing out 3 lucrative months in a limited season, but better than nothing. But then it became clear that this was all bunkum. There was no certification that was going to allow for this trade in the spring or at any time in the future. Eustace then tried to say that the EU had changed their minds, they'd changed their position. Now this is important as far as I'm concerned, because if the EU had said that the trade could continue, then there would be documentation to this effect. The government, however, have been unable to produce it. We're surely not expected to believe that we have negotiated a deal that includes all of the rights that we have secured for trade with the EU, limited as they are, and that it doesn't mention the trade in molluscs, for which no other third country in the world has an exemption, and yet we're claiming we have an exemption, but it just somehow got missed off the legal text of the Trade and Cooperation Agreement? That would be ludicrous. Because, as I think I've said in the past, even if the minister had a letter talking about the intention to allow the trade, if it didn't end up in the final deal, then that letter is worthless. It contains no legal merit, it's just a statement of intent. Because the person who wrote that letter for the EU might have said, well, yeah, but we only said that because you said you were going to agree a deal that did this. You know, it's not a treaty. What we can and cannot trade with the EU is a matter of a combination of 3 things. Our rules on exporting, their rules on importing, and the special conditions applying between us as laid out in the treaty. Now, okay, we have nothing against shellfish farmers in this country exporting those live bivalve molluscs Category B. That's fine. But the EU do have rules against importing such things. So therefore, the only way we can do it is if it was in that treaty, and it's not. Now, I feel I needed to explain that because of this legal action by some fishermen, because the situation is that they've been screwed over, absolutely. Yes, some of them were naive for supporting Brexit, but not all of them supported Brexit. We need to move away from that. And innocents are suffering too. Besides, it's not always straightforward to blame someone for voting for a thing if they were lied to about what they voted for. Even if you think that they must have been a bit thick for not seeing through, you know, what many of us saw as obvious lies. And it has been said for some time that when Brexit hits, we might expect a lot of businesses to take the UK government to court over the consequences to them. Now, I'm no legal expert, like I said. I don't know how likely they are to win. I struggle to believe in this case that they're very likely. But as I understand it, the aim in such cases, usually, is to seek compensation, as is the case here. These fishermen are saying that if the situation isn't resolved by September, which if I'm understanding the oyster proverb correctly, it would be the start of the next season, given that the current one is therefore basically over now. So it makes sense to give the government the off-season to do something. But if nothing is done, then some are just going to have to abandon the business altogether and they will seek compensation. Their grievance with the government seems to be based around the lies. Now, cannot possibly judge on the merits of the case, as I said, but I do wonder if there won't be a couple of problems for the plaintiffs here. One is, how much did the lie actually impact your business? It's worth considering this, because if you're going to say that you were screwed by the lies, then you're saying that you made certain decisions based on the lie. Okay, fine. I get that if someone wasn't, farming mollusks in Category B waters, and you suddenly went into that industry based on what the government had told you, okay, you might have agreements. But if you've been doing it for a long time, what would those fishermen have done differently if the government hadn't lied to them? What if the government said that the trade couldn't go ahead because we're becoming a third country and the EU don't allow third countries to do this? You're basically buggered. Sorry about that, but Brexit's worth it as far as we're concerned. What then? What would those fishermen have done differently? Because if the answer is nothing significant, then I don't know what they're actually taking the government to court for. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't like the idea that the government are getting away with that dishonesty, that greased their way to Brexit, or that they are trashing communities all around Britain who depend on this industry. But if you could take the government to court for lying to you, I mean, we could all do that. I mean, surely businesses who were denied having the systems in place to cope with Brexit have a stronger grievance against the government. The second problem, as I see it, is so if the lies didn't have a material impact on their business, and after all, how could it? Yes, they lied, but at the same time, those lies were not for the industry. Those lies were for public opinion. So they weren't going to be allowed to trade their fish with or without the lies. That's all there is to it. But that being the case, well, what is their case? That the government shouldn't have pursued a change to trading conditions that knackered their business? I mean, trading conditions are affected by new government legislation quite regularly. Sometimes it works out well for your business. Sometimes it works out poorly. But I'm not sure how it's unlawful either way. After all, there's no law that says that the government have to act in the national interest. If there were, it wouldn't have been possible to have the government we have right now. Now, from reports, the case seems to be centred around negligence and maladministration regarding the negotiations. Like I said, I'm not a legal expert, but seriously, they're going to try and sue the government for being crap at negotiating. I mean, good luck with that. It would be amazing if a court actually decided that being crap at trade deals was unlawful and that some legal remedy was possible, because that would be essentially to force the reversal of the hard Brexit we've got. But do we really think that that's the case? Really? It just sounds too fanciful for me. And I'll grant you that the government are still lying about this. They're still trying to say that this legislation which bans the trade in Category B mollusks is new. It isn't. The legislation has been in place for years. We put it in place. We were EU members when it went in place. They have nothing to back up their demonstrably false assertion. But exposing the lie, though important, I mean, I just haven't seen an explanation about how this is supposed to be unlawful. Like I said, we wouldn't have half our problems if it was illegal for the government ministers to tell lies. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.